Hey everyone, how's it going? So, as we all anxiously await the release of patch 15.1, I thought it would be kind of fun to do a small series of videos just kind of talking about some of the most discussed or asked things that I always get from the community. Things such as, what's your favorite DLC? What do you think about this DLC? How would you do this? What do you think of that? Stuff like, those kind of questions that I get asked all the time. So I thought it'd be kind of fun to make a short series of videos covering some of that and talking about some of the ones that I think would be most interesting. So for our first topic and our first little video here, I want to go over what I call Crown Falls Syndrome. And what exactly do I mean by that? Well, let's go over and take a look at Crown Falls and let's dive into what I mean by Crown Falls Syndrome. So there she is, Crown Falls, naked as the day we were born and ready for being built upon. Now, when Sunken Treasures came out back in Season 1, the second DLC of Season 1, following the awesome DLC Botanica, and before the passage came out, Crown Falls was marketed to us as the continental landmass to build the city of your dreams, a sandbox type experience with plenty of resources. It has the most fertility slots of any island in the game, the most mineral slots. Oddly enough, it tends to have very few oil wells, and they're put in the worst place possible because they hate us apparently. But it is the place to build whatever you want on, which is all great and fun. People love building big cities. It's just something people enjoy. You go ask anybody, where should I build my capital? Where should I build a big city? I want to build the biggest city possible. Where do I need to build it? The answer is always Crown Falls. And that is where I think the shortcomings of Crown Falls starts to come into play. It's the same place every single time. It doesn't really matter how you go about designing the island. It doesn't really matter about how you go about laying out your city and building it. It's typically going to always look the same. No matter what you do, Crown Falls has the exact same terrain every single time. It always has the coastlines here and here. You have your raised areas on each corner. And you have the high raised area in the back by the waterfall and lake. And then you have your rivers and your little islands over here. Crown Falls suffers from repetitiveness in terms of layout choices. I know that this is going to just be somewhat of a controversial opinion, and I'm probably going to get some flack down the comments, so go ahead and start clacking on those keyboards. But I would say 80% of the time, most of the cities that I see people post pictures of on Crown Falls, I can barely tell them apart. They always look the same to me. On occasion, I'll see something somewhat unique. That usually involves dozens of mods adding new buildings and lots of new decorations to really give the city a lot more life. But using just what we have from Ubisoft, it typically looks the same. The only time I see anything completely different is when you have those madmen record builders that use Crown Falls as production-only islands, and it's covered in clipped bicycle factories with, a skyline tower and a few other things crammed into a corner with the giant block palace stuck on an island somewhere, maybe a little spot over here somewhere. But other than that, most people's Crown Falls look the exact same. There's a layout for Crown Falls on the wiki. An image of that is flashing up on the screen right now. And that layout, a lot of people use. And so everyone's Crown Falls that use that always look the same. And then people go and they post it saying, look what I built. And I'm like, but it looks the same. It's so boring. A lot of people will know that I am honestly not the biggest fan of Crown Falls just because you always end up with a city that, even if you change your layout a little bit, it's going to look very, very similar every single time because of the terrain. Going beyond just the player aspect of Crown Falls, there are other issues with Crown Falls that come from a design standpoint of other content. When Season 2 came out and we got the Seat of Power DLC with the Palace gave us an amazing opportunity to build a fairly modular and unique palace that we could lay out however we wanted to. And it gave us lots and lots of bonuses, and then it gave us additional prestige levels once we reach 9,000 attractiveness up to 33,000 attractiveness, giving us prestige level 25, which gives you an insane number of bonuses on all of your different departments. Now, here's where one of the problems with the palace comes into play. As you can see right here, on this little island I've got the palace kind of centrally located right here in the middle, and it does cover basically the entire island. I currently have 34 modules put on there. My island attractiveness is at 3571. Now, if I want to get to at least one prestige level, I'll need about another 6,500 attractiveness on this island. That's going to take up an insane amount of space. If I want to get 33,000 attractiveness, I would basically need to cover the majority of this island with zoos, museums, and botanical gardens, with sets that are, the completed sets, along with music pavilions and other things that I can use to boost the attractiveness of this island and try to get it up to 33,000 if I want that. At that point, the palace loses a lot of its efficiency in terms of what it can do for your island as a whole. If I don't have a lot of residences here, I'm not getting a good benefit for the Department of Administration for a lot of its stuff. The Department of Culture. Now, this one right here on an attractiveness island is going to be useful because you can use the influence, you can use the estate collections. There's several different things you can use. The Department of Labor stuff would basically be absolutely useless on this island. The Department of Welfare may have some usefulness, and then the Department of Trade, again, may have some usefulness on a standard large-size island in the Old World. Or in Cape Trelawney, which is still the Old World, it's just called Cape. But you lose a lot of the efficiency of having the palace be maxed out because you're not having a lot of stuff that it can cover. You're then having to have specialized islands with a local department that can only have one policy. So you typically want your palace doing as much as it possibly can for that one island that it's on. And that one island typically is going to be Crown Falls because of the space. You can get 33,000 attractiveness on Crown Falls and still have an insane amount of space left over for housing, industry, and everything else you possibly might want. Seat of Power is almost like it was balanced around having the palace put on Crown Falls because of the amounts, the numbers involved with the attractiveness and everything else, and even just getting to 9,000 attractiveness is quite a bit. So I really feel like Seat of Power was balanced around needing Crown Falls. Going beyond that, if we take a look at the tourist season content, so here is a slightly more built up Crown Falls, as we can clearly see. And I have 12 hotels spread out on this island. Now, why 12? Well, you need 5 hotels to unlock and start building the Iron Tower. You need about 10 hotels to unlock the need for the Iron Tower. There is a difference between being able to build the Iron Tower and the hotels needing them. The need is right here. And it does require, it's 1,000? Oh God, now I done forgot. I think it requires a certain number of tourists. I probably should have that pulled up so I would know what I'm talking about. But I do know for a fact that it requires 10 hotels to unlock the need for the Iron Tower. Then, if you want to max out the Iron Tower with 5,000 tourists, plus you'll need additional tourists to be as customer workforce for your food and drink venues, the bars, cafes, and restaurants. You'll end up if you want to have all of that kind of stuff, you're going to need between 15 and 20 hotels. Now, 15 or 20 hotels on Crown Falls, again, very spread out. As you can see, I've got 12 hotels, and they're not too clumped together. I've got like one up here, I've got one down here, I've got like 2 or 3 over here, several over here in this area. They're very spread out, and they're not all clumped together. Now, if we pop over to the old world here, on this large island right here, I have 3 hotels on this island. Now, this island is just a standard large island, and I've got 3 hotels here. Now, imagine having, 15 more of these hotels spread around and having to cram those in here. It's a bit insane how many hotels you need for the Iron Tower. It's just, to me, again, just like with the Seat of Power, it is almost like it's scaled to just fit better on Crown Falls. You have more space to move everything around. You're not taking up so much space on a limited island with lots and lots of hotels. And it just visually looks better. I know visuals aren't the biggest thing to everybody, but for those of us who do care about visuals, having 15 or 20 hotels crammed onto a large or medium island just looks absurd. This is probably one of my densest, smaller islands right here, and I believe I have 2 hotels. I've got 2 hotels here. Imagine if I needed to have 10 or 15 hotels squeezed in on this island. It would just destroy this island, and I don't like it. Just like with Seat of Power, as I said, I feel like the scaling was done with Crown Falls in mind, and I personally do not like that, because it goes back to the Crown Falls syndrome. Crown Falls is the biggest island, has the most space. That's where you should be building everything. It's where your most important monuments go. It's where most of your hotels are going to be at, your most skyscrapers, your Skyline Tower, or your initial Skyline Tower. It's where everything kind of goes because it has the most space. But that creates a system of self-repeating repetitiveness in the design and layout. Yes, everybody's cities are unique and different. But I can probably go find 10 pictures of a skyscraper sitting on Crown Falls, and you're not going to be able to tell a ton of difference between them. Because at the end of the day, Anno 1800 really does not have a wide variety of building styles. You know, there's one model for each factory type. There's, 6 or 7 different models for each residential tier, but they all have the same color scheme, so they all kind of look similar to each other. I mean, we pop down to one of my non-skyscraper islands right here. Now, I do have the Vibrant Cities skin coloring everything, so let's turn that off and just take a look at it. Whoops. Turn that off and turn that off. There we go. Good enough. So, as you can see, yeah, I mean, yes, there are different models, but it all kind of looks the same because they're all the same colors. You know, all the engineers are blue, all the investors are green, so it all kind of looks the same. So there's not a lot of models in the game. At the end of the day, there's really not that many models in the game for variation. So Crown Falls starts looking the same. And so it just creates this feeling in the community that if you want to build anything of any reasonable significance, you have to build it on Crown Falls. But Crown Falls gets very repetitive and boring for at least for me personally. And I think it would be better if Crown Falls was procedurally generated or something, maybe. I think that would have been interesting. Or if they just didn't scale some of the content to where Crown Falls is the de facto place to go and build, because it just offers the best space to get the most efficiency out of the content. If the palace, for example, was scaled down by even half or more in terms of what's needed, it still leaves your standard large old world islands in a position to where they can get the full benefits of the content to get that high prestige levels on the palace and still be able to build on large islands. And then that just makes Crown Falls the sandboxy experience it was meant to be, because that just means it's just easier to get those high levels of attractiveness. As it stands right now, if someone does not have the Sunken Treasures DLC, but they do have Seat of Power, they're probably not going to get the best, what's the word I'm looking for? The best experience from Seat of Power. And I think that's a failing of game design. You should not need one DLC to get the best experience and the best quality out of another DLC. Those should not intertwine like that. You should, if I pay for one DLC, I should not have to buy another DLC just to get the maximum benefit from another one. I don't think that's a good thing. I know some people will disagree with me, and again, that's fine. But I just don't agree with that. There are other similarities like that I will go into later on another video about some other content. But just speaking about Crown Falls specifically, it's something that I think is just not good. And I think the DLC should have been balanced with only large old world islands in mind first, and then let Crown Falls just make it easier and, just make it a sandboxy experience for those who have it and be done with it. So those are my thoughts and just just some chit-chatting about how I feel about Crown Falls and the Sunken Treasures DLC, in general, and what it did for the game. I feel like I hate to use the word ruined, but I don't know what other kind of word to use right now, but I think it kind of ruined some of the things about Anno that made it interesting, which was having lots of different large islands and building stuff on each one and having to spread yourself out amongst multiple islands. At this point in the game's life, I see a lot of people just saying that, I just want to hurry up and get to Crown Falls so I can, tear down all of my other smaller islands and just build everything on one island and have and just have like one small support island and not have to build multiple islands. That's not what Anno has ever been about. Anno has always been about building islands up and having multiple islands under your control and trading between them. That's Anno. And yes, I'm probably being an old fuddy-duddy, but I feel like they should not have gotten away from that. It honestly started in Anno 2205 with Wildwater Basin, which was the first time a continental landmass was added into the Anno franchise, and I feel like that's where it kind of went downhill. But even with Wildwater Basin, you couldn't do everything on the main island. You still had to have all of your other islands and stuff and all of your other regions and stuff set up. But with Crown Falls, you might need like one extra island in an old world region, and that's it. Everything else can be done on Crown Falls. You don't need anything else other than the other regions. Obviously, you still need other regions unless you're doing a one island challenge, which if you do a one island challenge on Crown Falls, I will disregard your one island challenge because you just made it too easy on yourself because it has too much of everything. So yeah, I just feel like Crown Falls just kind of ruined some of the Anno experience. Now, yes, I can just turn it off, and I do often just turn Crown Falls off and don't play with it. Or, I have the DLC active, but I just never settle the island, or I settle it and then delete the warehouse and let the AI come and take it. But I just feel like overall, just as a general sense, that Crown Falls wasn't the best thing to me for them to add, just because it took away from so much that made the game a little more interesting before it came out. So because I always enjoyed when the game first came out, seeing all the different cities people would build across lots of different island models and stuff, and people building islands on, cities on smaller islands and having very unique cities on all these different island shapes. And nowadays it's just Crown Falls ad nauseum, and it's just kind of boring. And it's a design, to me, it stems from the design of DLC content and how they seem to be balancing things these days. Is just balancing it around Crown Falls. So that's it for me today, guys. It's just a little chit chat about all of that. let me know your thoughts down below in the comments, and give me your thoughts on Crown Falls and what you think about it, or what you think about my thoughts on it. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you think I'm crazy? Are you going to unsub because I just bashed your favorite island? Let me know. And this is just, again, all personal opinion type stuff, and just how I kind of feel about it. Because I get these questions all the time, so I thought it'd be kind of fun to talk about it. So with that, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Take care.